The massive chamber on Nexus Prime had never seen such tension. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated areas, but today felt different. The air itself seemed heavy with fear and anger. Ambassador of the stood at the center podium, his tall blue form trembling slightly as he prepared to speak. Fellow members of the Galactic Council, began, his voice carrying across the vast space. We gather today to address the human problem once and for all. Murmurs filled the chamber. The collective's representative, a being that spoke for millions of minds at once, made clicking sounds of agreement. The ancient ethereals, floating in their energy forms, pulsed with worried light. Everyone knew why they were here. For 300 years, humans had been expanding through space like a virus. They took planets that others claimed. They fought wars that seemed impossible to win. They never gave up, even when defeat was certain. Other species had learned to fear the sight of human ships on their borders. Activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked human territory, spreading like an infection across the star map. Look at this expansion, he said. In just 3 centuries, they have claimed over 2,000 systems. They show no signs of slowing down. The ethereal representative, calling itself Ancient One, spoke in thoughts that everyone could hear. The humans are unpredictable. They make decisions that no logical species would make. This makes them dangerous beyond measure. On the other side of space, aboard the human battleship New Liberty, Commander Hayes watched the encrypted transmission from their spy network. The Council was finally making their move. He had expected this day would come. Admiral needs to see this immediately, told his communications officer, Lieutenant Danny Brooks. The young man's face went pale as he realized what they were watching. Admiral Jake arrived on the bridge within minutes. He was a man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent most of his life trying to keep peace between humans and aliens. Now it seemed like his efforts had failed. "How long do we have?" asked, studying the transmission. "Based on their debate schedule, maybe 2 days before they vote," replied. "And from what our sources tell us, the vote won't be close." Captain Lisa Turner joined them on the bridge. She was younger than, with short brown hair and scars from too many battles. Unlike the Admiral, she had never believed diplomacy would work with the aliens. "I told you this would happen," Lisa said, crossing her arms. "They've been planning this for years. We should strike first while we still can." Shook his head. "If we attack them now, we prove everything they say about us. We become the monsters they claim we are." "We're going to be dead monsters if we don't act," Lisa shot back. "You've seen their fleet numbers. If all the Council species unite against us, we can't win a straight fight." Back on Nexus Prime, the debate continued. Representative of the militant empire spoke next. They looked like giant armored insects and had fought humans several times. "The humans do not fight with honor," declared, his mandibles clicking with anger. "They use tactics that civilized species would never consider. They attack supply lines. They target civilian infrastructure. They make war ugly and brutal." A voice from the collective responded, speaking as one mind for billions. "We have analyzed human behavior for 3 centuries. They are chaos given form. Where other species seek order and stability, humans embrace disorder. They thrive in situations that would destroy other civilizations." The accusations went on for hours. Humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too willing to sacrifice everything for small gains. They corrupted other species with their chaotic thinking. They were a cancer that would eventually consume the entire galaxy if left unchecked. Doctor, working at a research station near the galactic rim, wasn't thinking about politics. She was studying some strange signals her equipment had picked up from deep space. The signals were old, maybe millions of years old, but they had started getting stronger recently. "Computer, can you translate any of this?" she asked, staring at the complex patterns on her screen. "Translation incomplete," the computer replied. However, certain words appear repeatedly. The closest human equivalents would be warning, danger, and coming. Frowned. She had been studying ancient alien languages for years, but this was different. The signals seemed to carry an urgency that made her uncomfortable. She decided to forward the data to Earth Command, though she doubted anyone would pay attention with the current political crisis. On Nexus Prime, the vote was called. One by one, each species cast their decision. The voted for containment. The collective voted for elimination. The ethereals, after long consideration, voted for strict quarantine. The wanted total war. When the final count was announced, the result was clear. Humanity would be contained by force, and if they resisted, they would be eliminated. The Council gave them 1 month to withdraw from all disputed territories and accept monitoring stations in their remaining systems. Ambassador felt no joy in the victory. He genuinely believed this was necessary for galactic peace, but he also knew humans well enough to predict their response. They would never accept containment. This meant war was coming. Admiral received the Council's ultimatum 12 hours later. He read it twice before calling his senior staff together. The terms were impossible to accept. Humanity would become prisoners in their own territory, watched constantly by alien forces. "What are our options?" asked the assembled officers. Captain Turner leaned forward. "We fight, it's that simple. We've faced worse odds before." "Have we?" Commander Hayes asked quietly. "This isn't one species or even an alliance. This is everyone. Every major power in the galaxy has agreed that we're the problem." The room fell silent as the weight of their situation settled in. Humanity had always been outnumbered in space, but they had never faced united opposition like this. Their advantages in individual combat and tactical flexibility might not be enough against such overwhelming numbers. Dr. Signal Analysis finally reached Earth Command that evening. The data about ancient warnings was filed with thousands of other routine reports. No one had time to examine strange signals from empty space when humanity faced its greatest crisis. But in the dark between galaxies, something vast and ancient stirred. The signals had detected were growing stronger, and their source was moving toward the galaxy at an impossible speed. Soon, everyone would learn that humanity's expansion had never been the real threat. The true danger was just beginning to wake up. Doctor had not slept in 36 hours. The strange signals from deep space kept getting stronger, and now she could make out more of the ancient language. What she was reading made her blood run cold. "Warning to all who receive this message," she read aloud from her translation. "The Devourers have begun their great sleep. If you detect this signal growing stronger, they are waking. Flee to the outer reaches or prepare for extinction. There is no middle path." Hands shook as she typed her report. The signal was definitely getting stronger, which meant something was moving toward their galaxy. Something that ancient civilizations had feared enough to send warnings across millions of years. She sent an emergency transmission to Earth Command, but she knew they were too busy with the Council crisis to pay attention. Still, she had to try. The universe might depend on someone taking her seriously. On the Of-7, scientist Prime Zephyr was having similar problems. He had been studying their oldest archives, looking for historical precedent for dealing with aggressive species like humans. Instead, he found something that made him question everything. The archives spoke of the time of silence from their distant past. Entire star systems had gone quiet overnight. Exploration ships sent to investigate never returned. The few survivors who reached space spoke of living machines the size of moons that consumed everything in their path. Zephyr's research team had dismissed these records as mythology. Ancient were known for their dramatic storytelling, but as he cross-referenced the dates with astronomical data, he found disturbing correlations. During the time of silence, their instruments had detected massive objects moving between galaxies. Now those same instruments were picking up similar readings. Something enormous was approaching from the direction of the Andromeda Galaxy, moving faster than anything should be able to travel through empty space. In the ethereal collective consciousness on their home dimension, Ancient One felt stirrings of memory that had been buried for. The ethereals lived for thousands of years, and the oldest among them sometimes remembered things from the beginning of their civilization. Ancient One reached deeper into the shared memory than any had dared in centuries. There, in the darkest corners of their racial consciousness, lay the truth. The ethereals had not always lived in energy form. Long ago, they had physical bodies and lived on worlds like other species. They had changed themselves into energy beings not for enlightenment, but for survival. Something had come from outside their galaxy, something that consumed physical matter but could not touch pure energy. The transformation had saved them, but the memories were so terrible that they had chosen to forget. Now those memories were returning. The Devourers were real and they were coming back. Captain Steve Parker commanded the reconnaissance ship Frontier, patrolling the outer edge of human space. His crew of 12 was used to long, boring missions watching for Council fleet movements. Today was different. "Captain, you need to see this," called out sensor operator Mills. Her voice had a strange quality that made everyone on the bridge turn to look at her screen. The display showed something impossible. Massive structures, each one larger than Earth's moon, were moving through space at the galactic rim. They were not ships in any sense that humans understood. They looked organic, like enormous creatures with metallic shells. "How many are there?" Parker asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "I count at least 50 in this sector alone," replied. "And Captain, they're not following any flight path we understand. They're moving in perfect formation, like they're being controlled by a single mind." Parker ordered his ship to maintain distance and continue observing. What he saw over the next few hours changed everything he thought he knew about the universe. The creatures were not just moving through space, they were consuming it. Asteroids, debris, even stray particles of cosmic dust disappeared when they passed. The creatures seemed to be feeding on everything they encountered, growing slightly larger with each meal. They moved with purpose toward the heart of the galaxy. The collective's home systems experienced the first attack 3 days later. Outpost Station 7, a research facility studying dark matter, simply stopped transmitting. When a patrol ship arrived to investigate, they found nothing. The station was gone. The asteroid it had been built on was gone. Even the small planetoid nearby had vanished. The patrol ship's sensors detected strange energy readings where the outpost should have been. Then something massive emerged from what looked like empty space. The creature was beautiful and terrible, covered in what appeared to be living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid. The patrol ship tried to run, but the creature was faster. It caught the ship in some kind of energy field and began pulling it apart molecule by molecule. The crew's final transmission was a mixture of scientific observation and pure terror. "It's not just destroying us," the captain reported. "It's taking us apart and using the materials to make itself bigger. This thing is learning from our technology as it consumes us." News of the attack spread quickly through the collective's shared consciousness. For the first time in their history, the billions of linked minds experienced pure panic. They had faced many dangers before, but always as a unified force. This enemy seemed designed to counter their greatest strength. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council received reports from all 3 species within hours of each other. They presented their historical evidence. The ethereals shared their recovered memories. The collective provided sensor data from the destroyed outpost. Ambassador looked at the assembled data with growing horror. The enemy they faced made humanity's expansion look like a minor border dispute. These devourers had apparently destroyed entire civilizations before going dormant. Now they were awake and heading directly for the galaxy's inhabited systems. "How long do we have?" asked the representative, his usual aggressive tone replaced by obvious fear. Ancient One's energy form flickered with uncertainty. "Based on their current speed and trajectory, the main force will reach our outer colonies within 6 months. The advanced scouts are already here." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Every species in the council had enemies they had fought for centuries, but they had never faced anything like this. Their wars had always been about resources, territory, or ideology. The Devourers seemed to view all other life as nothing more than raw materials. Doctor finally received a response to her warnings, not from Earth Command but from Admiral himself. He had been monitoring all scientific reports, looking for any advantage in the coming war with the Council. Instead, he found evidence of something far worse. "Doctor, I need you to pack everything and get to Earth immediately," told her over the secure channel. "If your analysis is correct, we may be facing something that makes our current problems look trivial." Gathered her data and prepared for the journey to Earth. As her ship left the research station, she took one last look at her instruments. The signals were stronger than ever, and now she could detect something else. The ancient warnings were not just about the Devourers themselves. The final part of the message was clear. The only species that had ever successfully fought the Devourers were those that refused to accept logical defeat. Those who fought impossible battles and somehow found ways to win. Those who were considered too dangerous and unpredictable by their neighbors. For the first time since the crisis began, allowed herself a small smile. Humanity might be about to become very valuable to their galactic neighbors. The question was whether pride would let the Council ask for help before it was too late. Ambassador Foster had never expected to walk into the Galactic Council chambers as anything other than a prisoner. 3 weeks ago, the Council had voted to eliminate humanity. Now they were begging for human help. The irony was not lost on her. The emergency session had been called after the Devourers destroyed 2 more collective outposts and consumed an entire mining colony. 50,000 beings had vanished in less than an hour, leaving only empty space where their world had been. Ambassador Foster began, his blue skin pale with stress. "We find ourselves in an unprecedented situation. Our previous decision regarding humanity may have been premature." Kept her expression neutral, though inside she felt a mix of anger and satisfaction. "Are you saying the Council was wrong about us being the galaxy's greatest threat?" Ancient One's energy form pulsed with embarrassment. "The situation has changed. We face an enemy that threatens all life in the galaxy. Our analysts believe human military tactics may be uniquely effective against this foe." The collective's representative spoke with the voice of billions. "We have studied human warfare extensively while preparing for conflict with your species. Your methods are chaotic, unpredictable, and often seemingly illogical. Against the Devourers, this may be an advantage." Looked around the chamber at species that had been ready to wipe out humanity just days ago. Now they sat before her like students asking for help with homework they could not understand. "What exactly are you asking for?" she said. Activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red markers indicated Devourer, spreading inward like a disease. "We need human military advisors to train our forces. We need your ships to join our fleets. Most importantly, we need your strategic thinking to help us find a way to fight an enemy that adapts to conventional tactics." Admiral had given clear instructions before she left for Nexus Prime. Humanity would help, but not as subordinates. If the galaxy wanted human aid, they would have to accept human leadership in military matters. "We will help," said finally, "but under human command structure. Your species excel in many areas, but warfare is not one of them. If you want to survive this, you need to fight like humans." The negotiations took 2 days. Every species had objections to human military doctrine. The found human tactics too unpredictable to analyze properly. The collective struggled with the concept of individual initiative that human strategy required. The ethereals were disturbed by human willingness to accept casualties for strategic gains. But fear of extinction was a powerful motivator. The alliance was formed with Admiral as supreme military commander and human officers integrated into every major fleet and army unit. Colonel arrived at the joint training facility on 7 with mixed feelings. 6 months ago, he had expected to fight them. Now he was supposed to train them. His first group of alien recruits looked as uncomfortable as he felt. "Listen up," told the mixed group of collective drones and even a few ethereals in temporary physical forms. "Everything you know about warfare is wrong when it comes to these devourers. They learn from every engagement. They adapt to every tactic you use more than once. The only way to beat them is to never do the same thing twice." Nexus 7, a young warrior scholar, raised his hand. "How can we plan effective strategies if we cannot repeat successful tactics?" Smiled grimly. "That's exactly the right question. The answer is you don't plan, you react. You improvise. You do whatever crazy thing comes to mind in the moment because crazy is the one thing they can't predict." The training was difficult for everyone. We're taught to think 3 moves ahead in any conflict. Now they had to learn to make snap decisions based on intuition rather than analysis. Collective drones, used to instant coordination with millions of minds, had to learn to act independently when communications were cut. Echo Prime, a collective drone, struggled more than most. During one exercise, had the alien forces practice fighting while completely cut off from their command structures. Echo Prime froze completely, unable to function without the guidance of the shared consciousness. "What do you do when you can't ask for orders?" demanded. "I wait for instructions," Echo Prime replied in the flat tone all collective drones used. "Wrong. You make your best guess and act on it. Even if you're wrong, doing something is better than doing nothing." Doctor worked around the clock with alien scientists to understand devourer technology. The enemy's ability to consume matter and convert it into more of themselves was unlike anything in known science. They seemed to operate on principles that violated several fundamental laws of physics. "They're not just machines," explained to the research team. "They're not just living creatures either. They appear to be some kind of hybrid that combines the advantages of both. They can think like living beings but rebuild themselves like machines." Scientist Zephyr studied the data with fascination and horror. "How do we fight something that becomes stronger every time we attack it?" "We don't fight it directly," replied. "We fight smart. We attack weak points. We use hit and run tactics. We make them waste energy chasing targets that aren't really important." The first joint operation came sooner than anyone wanted. A devourer scout force was approaching the mining system of Tau. The system had no strategic value, but it was home to 3 million civilian miners and their families. Captain Lisa Turner commanded the joint fleet of human and collective ships. The mixed crews had trained together for only 3 weeks. It was not nearly enough time, but time was something they did not have. "Remember," Lisa broadcast to all ships, "these things learn fast. Every weapon we use, every formation we fly, every trick we try will only work once. After that, they'll be ready for it. So make your first shots count." The battle at Tau lasted 4 hours. The Devourers fought unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their ships flowed like liquid metal, changing shape to adapt to incoming fire. When conventional weapons proved ineffective, they began absorbing the energy attacks and redirecting them at the defending fleet. Lisa ordered tactics that would have been considered insane by normal military standards. Ships broke formation to attack from random angles. Weapons were fired in seemingly random patterns. Some ships rammed devourer vessels while others retreated without apparent reason. The alien crews struggled to understand what Lisa was doing, but they followed orders. Nexus 7, serving as tactical officer on a cruiser, found himself implementing strategies that violated every principle of space combat he had ever learned. "Captain Turner, this pattern makes no sense," he reported over the communications link. "Good," Lisa replied. "If it doesn't make sense to you, it won't make sense to them either. Keep doing exactly what you're doing." The battle ended with the destruction of the Devourer scout force, but at a cost. 12 ships were lost, including a collective heavy cruiser and 2 destroyers. However, for the first time, someone had actually defeated the Devourers in direct combat. In the aftermath, Echo Prime approached Colonel with something that looked like excitement in its normally emotionless face. "Colonel," the drone said, "during the battle when our communications were damaged, I made independent decisions. I chose targets without consulting the collective consciousness. It was interesting." Nodded with approval. "How did it feel?" Echo Prime paused, searching for words to describe an experience no collective drone had ever had before. "It felt like I was truly alive for the first time." The victory at Tau proved that the Devourers could be beaten, but it also revealed the true scale of the threat they faced. Intelligence reports indicated that the scout force they had destroyed was less than 1% of the main Devourer fleet approaching the galaxy. Admiral reviewed the battle reports with growing concern. They had won one small engagement, but the cost had been enormous. If every battle was this expensive, they would run out of ships long before the Devourers ran out of forces. The real war was just beginning, and humanity had just taught the galaxy how to fight the impossible. Whether that would be enough remained to be seen. The war was going badly. In just 6 weeks, the Devourers had consumed 12 star systems and showed no signs of slowing down. Every conventional battle ended the same way. The Allied fleet would fight bravely, destroy some Devourer ships, and then watch in horror as the enemy rebuilt itself using the wreckage. Admiral stood in the command center on Earth, studying the galactic map with growing desperation. Red markers showed Devourer positions advancing steadily toward the heart of civilized space. Blue markers showed Allied fleets, growing smaller with each engagement. "We're losing 3 ships for every one of theirs we destroy," reported Commander Hayes. "And they're getting stronger with each battle. They're learning our tactics faster than we can develop new ones." Rubbed his tired eyes. He had not slept more than 4 hours in the past 3 days. "What about the evacuation efforts?" "Moving slowly," replied. "The collective has managed to evacuate most of their outer colonies, but they are refusing to abandon their research stations. They think they can find a scientific solution to the Devourer problem." "And the Ethereals?" "They're helping with evacuations, but their home dimension is apparently unreachable by the Devourers. They could survive even if the rest of us don't." Felt the weight of the galaxy's survival pressing down on him. Traditional space warfare was not working. The Devourers were too adaptable, too resilient. They needed a completely different approach. "Get me Captain Turner," he ordered. Lisa Turner had been leading guerrilla operations against Devourer forces for the past month. Her tactics were considered extreme even by human standards. Instead of fighting in space, she took small teams aboard Devourer ships to attack them from within. "Admiral," Lisa reported from her ship's bridge, "we just finished another boarding operation on a Devourer construct. The good news is we can hurt them from the inside. The bad news is they're adapting to our infiltration methods." "How many ships did you lose this time?" Lisa's face tightened. 2, but we took out a construct that was 3 times our size. The math still works in our favor." Knew the math she was talking about. Human lives traded for strategic advantage. It was a calculation that other species found disturbing, but humans had been making such choices for thousands of years. "I need you to develop these tactics further," said. "Train mixed crews. Teach the aliens how to fight like us." On the training station orbiting 7, Colonel was already doing exactly that. His latest group of trainees included volunteers from every allied species. They were learning the most dangerous form of combat in the galaxy, boarding actions against devourer ships. The key is speed, explained to his mixed class. Once you're inside, you have maybe 10 minutes before the ship realizes you're there and starts changing its internal structure to crush you. Nexus 7 raised his hand. What if we encounter devourer crew members? There are no crew members, replied. The ships are the crew. The entire construct is one living entity. Everything you see inside is part of its body. Your job is to find the nerve center and destroy it before it can adapt. Echo Prime, the collective drone who had discovered individual thinking, volunteered for the first mixed boarding mission. The concept terrified the rest of the collective, but Echo Prime had developed something unprecedented: personal courage. I want to prove that individual action can succeed where collective thinking fails, Echo Prime explained to before the mission. The target was a medium-sized devourer construct that had been consuming asteroids in the Vega system. Captain Turner's ship, the Defiant, approached carefully while the alien crew tried to control their fear. Remember, Lisa told her boarding team, we go in hard and fast. Plant the charges in the core chamber and get out. Anyone who gets separated needs to find their own way back. We can't wait for stragglers. The boarding team consisted of 12 members, 6 humans, 2 collective drones, and 1 ethereal in a temporary physical form. They had trained together for 3 weeks, but this was their first real mission. The inside of the Devourer construct was like nothing they had ever seen. The walls pulsed with organic rhythms, and the floor felt soft under their feet. Passages led in all directions, some defying normal geometry by seeming to curve back on themselves. This way, Lisa called, following her scanner readings toward the core. Stay together and keep moving. The team had made it halfway to their target when the ship realized they were there. The passage walls began to close in, trying to crush the intruders. The floor became sticky, attempting to trap their feet. It knows we're here, shouted Nexus 7, using his strength to tear through a wall that had suddenly appeared to block their path. Echo Prime surprised everyone by taking charge when the passage split into 3 directions. You 3 go left, you 4 go right, the rest follow me. We'll hit the core from multiple angles. The collective back home felt Echo Prime's decision through their shared consciousness and reacted with shock. No drone had ever made such an independent tactical choice before. Some called it madness, but others recognized it as evolution. Lisa's group reached the core chamber first. The heart of the Devourer construct was a pulsing mass of organic machinery that seemed to be aware of their presence. Tentacles reached toward them while the walls began to secrete some kind of acid. Plant the charges, Lisa ordered, firing her weapon at the reaching tentacles. We've got maybe 2 minutes before this thing figures out how to kill us. The explosives were designed by Doctor based on her study of devourer biology. Instead of conventional weapons, they used a quantum disruption field that interfered with the enemy's ability to convert matter into energy. As the charges detonated, the entire construct began to convulse. The team fought their way back through passages that were now actively trying to kill them. 2 were lost when a corridor collapsed, but the rest made it to their extraction point. The Devourer ship died in space, its form breaking apart as the disruption field spread through its entire structure. For the first time, they had killed one of the creatures without allowing it to use the wreckage to rebuild itself. It worked, Lisa reported to Admiral. The quantum charges prevent them from recycling the matter. They actually lose resources when we destroy them this way. News of the successful boarding action spread quickly through the Allied fleets. More volunteers stepped forward for the dangerous missions. Nexus 7 became the first to lead a boarding team. Echo Prime was promoted to training instructor, teaching other collective drones the value of individual thinking. But the success came at a price. Boarding actions had a casualty rate of over 50%. For every devourer construct destroyed, dozens of brave volunteers died. The math was sustainable in the short term, but everyone knew they were racing against time. Doctor made a disturbing discovery while studying the wreckage from destroyed devourer ships. The enemy was not just adapting to their tactics. They were learning to think like their opponents. "Admiral," she reported to, "the latest devourer constructs are showing signs of individual decision-making. They're developing something like personal initiative. If they learn to think like humans while keeping their technological advantages, we could lose our only edge." Stared at the data with growing horror. Humanity's greatest strength was their unpredictability. If the devourers learned to be unpredictable too, the war would be over. "How long do we have before they complete this adaptation?" he asked. Checked her calculations. Based on their current learning rate, maybe 3 months. After that, they'll be able to think like us but with all the advantages of their technology. The race was on. Humanity had to find a way to win the war before the enemy became too much like them to defeat. The irony was not lost on. They were fighting creatures that threatened to become the very thing that made humans dangerous. In the outer systems, young pilot Jennifer Clark was discovering that the devourers were already changing. During a routine patrol, she encountered a devourer scout that behaved unlike any they had seen before. Instead of following predictable patterns, it seemed to be experimenting with different tactics. "This one's different," she reported to her squadron leader. "It's not just adapting to our moves, it's trying to surprise us." The scout ship attacked using a combination of orthodox military tactics and chaotic human-style improvisation. Jennifer barely escaped, but she brought back valuable intelligence. The enemy was becoming more like humanity with each passing day. The final phase of the war was beginning, and no one knew if the galaxy would survive to see its end. The main Devourer fleet reached Earth's solar system on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Jake watched from the command bridge as thousands of enemy constructs emerged from hyperspace, each one larger than Earth's moon. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. "How many?" asked his sensor operator. "Over 3,000 confirmed," Lieutenant Danny Brooks replied, his voice barely steady. "And Admiral, they're all different. No two ships have the same design. They've been learning from every battle." Nodded grimly. The Devourers had finally reached humanity's home system, and they had brought enough force to consume entire star systems. The Allied fleet defending Earth numbered only 800 ships, representing every species in the galaxy that still had vessels capable of fighting. "Sir," Communications Officer Mills called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Devourer fleet." "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers sounded almost human, but with an electronic quality that made everyone's skin crawl. "We are the Devourers. We have learned much from your species. You fight well, but your resistance only makes us stronger. Surrender now, and your absorption into our collective will be painless." Picked up the microphone with steady hands. "This is Admiral of the human fleet. We don't surrender. We don't give up. And we sure as hell don't make things easy for anyone trying to wipe us out." The response came back immediately. "We expected this answer. You have taught us much about stubbornness. We will honor your choice by making your defeat memorable." Captain Steve Parker commanded the scouting ship Ranger on the outer edge of the defensive perimeter. His mission was to identify the Devourer command structure, if one existed. What he found was worse than anyone had imagined. "Admiral," Steve reported, "I've found their command ship. It's not just big, it's massive. Easily 50 times larger than anything else in their fleet. And sir, it's not like the others. This one looks almost organic, like it grew instead of being built." Studied the sensor data. The command construct was indeed unlike anything they had seen before. It pulsed with energy patterns that resembled a living brain more than a machine. Doctor had theorized that the devourers might have a central consciousness, and this seemed to confirm her hypothesis. If we can destroy that ship, it might disrupt their coordination, said to his staff. But it's positioned in the center of their formation. Getting to it would be suicide. Commander Hayes stepped forward. Not necessarily suicide, sir. Definitely suicide. But that doesn't mean it can't be done. Looked at his old friend with understanding. They had both known this moment would come. Earth's fleet could not win a straight fight against the Devourer Armada, but they might be able to strike one decisive blow if they were willing to pay the ultimate price. Prepare the Omega Protocol, ordered quietly. The Omega Protocol was humanity's final contingency plan. Every ship in the fleet would concentrate their attack on the command construct, regardless of cost. It was designed to be used only when defeat was certain, and nothing remained but the chance to hurt the enemy before dying. Captain Lisa Turner received her orders aboard the Defiant. Her ship had been modified with the largest quantum disruption device ever built. Getting close enough to use it would require flying through the heart of the enemy fleet with no hope of escape. "Attention all crew," Lisa announced over the ship's intercom. "We've been given the honor of delivering the final blow. Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship has 5 minutes to do so." Not a single crew member left their post. Nexus 7, now serving as her tactical officer, spoke for all of them. "Captain, we have learned much about human courage in these past months. Today, we would like to be honorary humans." Echo Prime, commanding a squadron of modified collective ships, felt something new flowing through the shared consciousness. For the first time in their species' history, the collective was experiencing individual determination across billions of minds. Each drone was choosing to fight, not because the collective commanded it, but because they personally refused to surrender. The battle began when the Devourer fleet moved toward Earth. The Allied ships met them in the space between Mars and Jupiter, buying time for the civilian evacuation ships to escape toward the outer rim. Every second counted, and every second cost lives. Colonel led the final boarding action from the assault ship Thunder. His target was a Devourer construct that was moving to intercept Lisa's run toward the command ship. His team included volunteers from every species, all of them knowing they would not return. "Remember," told his team as they prepared to launch, "we're not trying to win anymore. We're trying to make sure our sacrifice means something." The boarding action was brutal and chaotic. The Devourer ship had learned from previous infiltrations and was ready for them. Passages filled with deadly gas, walls tried to crush them, and mechanical defenses attacked from every direction. But the team pushed forward, driven by something the Devourers could not understand or counter, the willingness to die for others. Doctor worked frantically in her laboratory, even as explosions shook the space station around her. She had discovered something important about the Devourer command structure, but there was no time to test her theory properly. "Admiral," she transmitted to, "the command ship is not just controlling the others. It's learning from them. Every time we destroy one of their ships, the knowledge goes back to the central mind. But there's a weakness. If the command ship is destroyed while it's processing information from the fleet, the feedback could destroy them all." Understood immediately. They needed to coordinate the attack perfectly. The command ship had to be destroyed at the exact moment when it was receiving data from the rest of the fleet. "All ships," broadcast, "this is our moment. Every ship attacks simultaneously. Make them think, make them learn, make them process everything at once. Then Lisa delivers the killing blow." The final assault was magnificent and terrible. 800 Allied ships attacked 3,000 Devourer constructs in a battle that lit up the solar system. Ships exploded on both sides, filling space with debris and energy. The Devourers fought back with weapons that physics, but the Allied fleet kept pressing forward. Captain Lisa Turner guided the Defiant through the chaos toward the command construct. Her ship was hit repeatedly, losing crew and systems with each attack. But she kept flying, protected by the sacrifice of every other ship in the fleet. "Quantum device is armed," reported Nexus 7, his voice calm despite the destruction around them. "We're in range." "Wait," Lisa ordered, watching her sensors. The command ship was receiving data from across the battlefield, processing the destruction of dozens of its vessels. "Not yet. We need maximum overload." Commander Hayes, aboard's flagship, made the final sacrifice. His ship rammed a Devourer construct that was moving to intercept Lisa, destroying both vessels but clearing her path to the target. "Now," Lisa whispered and pressed the firing button. The quantum disruption device hit the Devourer command ship just as it was processing information from the entire fleet. The feedback was instant and catastrophic. The command construct convulsed, its organic mechanical structure tearing itself apart as contradictory data streams overwhelmed its consciousness. The effect spread through the Devourer fleet like a virus. Ships that had been coordinating perfectly suddenly began firing on each other. Constructs that had been sharing information started consuming one another. The fleet that had seemed invincible minutes before dissolved into chaos and self-destruction. Lisa Turner died when the Defiant was caught in the explosion of the command ship, but her last transmission reached every surviving vessel. "Tell them we were never the threat. We were always the shield." The battle for Earth was over. The Devourer fleet was destroyed, but at enormous cost. Of the 800 ships that had defended humanity's home, fewer than 50 survived. Admiral's flagship was among the casualties, taking the old soldier with it. 3 months later, Ambassador Foster stood at the dedication ceremony for the Memorial of Heroes built in Earth's orbit. Representatives from every allied species had come to honor the sacrifice that saved the galaxy. "Today we remember not just those who died," said to the assembled crowd, "but what they died for. They fought for the right of all species to exist freely. They proved that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to do what is right despite that fear." Ancient One's energy form pulsed with solemn light. "The ethereals will remember this sacrifice for all time. Humanity was never our greatest threat. You were always our greatest hope." Echo Prime, now an individual consciousness separate from the collective, spoke for its people. "We have learned that strength comes not from thinking alike, but from choosing to stand together despite our differences." The galaxy was forever changed. The Galactic Council was reformed with humanity as its primary protectors. Earth became a symbol of hope, and human military academies were established on every major world. The species that had once been considered too dangerous to exist had proven themselves the galaxy's greatest defenders. But perhaps the most important change was in the way species viewed each other. The war had taught them that perceived weaknesses could be hidden strengths, and that those who seemed most different might be exactly what was needed when everything seemed hopeless. As looked out at the memorial, she remembered Admiral's final words. "We were never fighting for humanity alone. We were fighting for the idea that every species deserves the chance to be free." The Devourers were gone, but their greatest lesson remained. Sometimes the galaxy's salvation comes from the most unexpected source. Sometimes the greatest threat becomes the greatest hope, and sometimes the species that refuses to give up, no matter the odds, is exactly what the universe needs to survive.